The man grabs the yak stun. He smeared it on his face, and he has the rest of the tribe lie down in the dung pit. He made sure that every part of his body was covered with dung. The group then crawled into a line and approached the yaks in front of them. The dung that had just been smeared all over their bodies masked their odor. When the yaks were completely off guard, the chief gave the order and all the members of the tribe attacked the yaks. But the yaks, who heard the commotion, also rushed towards the humans in a group. As they got closer, the humans threw their spears. The spears landed in front of the yaks, instantly creating a fence that caused the prey to turn around and run away. Most of the yaks were forced to fall off the cliffs by the humans' pressing force. But among the yaks, an irritable yak suddenly turned around and charged at a skinny boy in the crowd. The boy is the leader's son. It's his first time on the hunt. So, when confronted by the suddenly mad yak, the boy was so frightened that he ran away. As expected, the boy was knocked to the ground, but the boy had not yet recovered from this sudden encounter. The yak suddenly charged at him in a second frenzy. The boy was hooked by the yak's horns and carried away. Though the boy's leader, his father, raised his spear and shot the yak, he was unable to stop the boy from being thrown off the cliff. By the time the clan arrived, the boy was hanging by one hand from the cliff, his life hanging by a thread. But before the clan could think of a way to save him, the rock in his hand suddenly broke loose. The father, the leader, watched his son fall unconscious halfway up the mountain, but he couldn't do anything about it. Everyone in a primitive tribe knows that the leader is responsible for the survival of the tribe, and they have more important tasks to fulfill right now. But the chief's father didn't give up so easily. While the other tribesmen went to collect the prey, the chief kept calling out the boy's name from the top of the mountain. But all night long, there was no answer. The tribesmen tried to comfort and guide the chief. As the night wore on, the chief finally decided to accept the fact that his son might have passed away. Moreover, with winter approaching, it was the chief's first duty to lead his people and pray back to their home as soon as possible. The winters of ancient times were long and brutal, powerful enough to destroy any species. But not long after the clan had left, a vulture suddenly landed next to the boy. The next moment, it was attracted by the smell of blood at the corner of the boy's beak. It turns out that the boy is not dead, but the situation he is about to face is more desperate than death. The vulture finds a body halfway up the mountain. The next thing it knows, it's attracted to the smell of blood at the corner of the corpse beak. It turns out the boy is not dead, but his situation is worse than death. The boy called for help, but there was no response. He had no choice but to try to find a way out of the cliff. But as soon as he took a step, he already regretted it. There was no place to stand on the smooth cliff. Desperate, he could only hold on to the only crack he could grab. Luckily, God took pity on him, and a sudden downpour of rain gave the boy hope again. The boy realizes that the rainwater is forming a river under the cliff. The boy clung desperately to the cliffs until the river at the foot of the mountain reached a certain depth. The boy leapt into the water. When he woke up again, he was back on the ground alive. He tried to catch up with his father and the rest of the clan, but a sharp pain shot through his lower body. Taking off his shoes, the boy saw that his right foot was injured and swollen beyond recognition. In order to continue the journey, the boy found a few stones and stuck his foot in the center, then broke it with force and found a wooden stick to fix it, so he could barely walk. But when the boy returned to the top of the mountain, he found that his father and the clan had disappeared, and the tombstones erected on the cliffside told him that his father and his people thought he was dead. This means that by now the boy has been abandoned. But as tribesmen, they've always traveled in packs to survive in the wild. How will the boy make it home alone? Still, the boy doesn't realize how quickly the wolves are on his trail. The boy tries desperately to escape, trying to climb the dead tree in front of him. But before he could reach it, a wolf bit him on the leg of his pants. Seeing that his whole body was about to be torn down, the boy took out his dagger and slashed the wolf that was biting him. Only then did the boy manage to climb to the top of the tree. But the wolves did not give up so easily, and they stood guard from day to night. Luckily, the wolves had left by daybreak, leaving only the wounded gray wolf behind. The boy made a spear out of stones and twigs and prepared to kill the wounded wolf to feed his hunger. But the wolf's constant wailing softened his heart. At this moment, he felt that the wolf was just like him, abandoned by his people because of his injuries. The boy decided to save the wolf because he felt the same way. The boy took out a rope and tied it around the wolf's mouth, which posed a threat to him, so that he wouldn't have to worry about being bitten. The boy then cleaned the wolf's wounds with water from the river. At night, the wolf and the man had to spend the night in the cave. When they woke up the next day, The wolf took advantage of the boy's absence and secretly untied the rope that bound his fangs. The boy raised a stone and took aim at the wounded hare. The boy caught it prey, but the wolf, who was watching, wanted it. The boy slapped him in the face. Then he tore into the raw meat. The boy's actions showed the wolf that he was his master. In the evening, the boy finally ate his roast, and the vanquished wolf could only watch, though his mouth was watering with desire. But he never took a step further, until the boy heard the wolf's grunts and whines and threw him a piece of meat. In the process, the wolf and the man began to disarm each other, but the boy had to get home before the first snowfall. He said goodbye to the wolf and kept signaling him to go to his pack. But after a long walk, the boy realized that the wolf was following him, and no matter how hard he tried, the wolf stayed 100 meters away. The boy was so angry that he threw the stake, but the wolf saw it and returned with the stake in his mouth. The first dog in history was born. After that, the boy took the wolf with him and named him Alpha. Along the way, one man and one wolf worked well together. Alpha was in charge of chasing and rounding up the prey. The boy built a fire to keep him warm, but it didn't last long. Winter came early, and the land was soon covered with snow and ice. The wolf and the alpha are able to catch very little prey. On the way, the alpha met his own kind. The boy thought he would have to face all the dangers alone. But one day, he fell through a hole in the ice. He was about to be swept away by the river when the alpha suddenly appeared. And over again, he jumped up and down, trying to break the ice to save the boy. But the ice remained intact. But the boy was saved when he pulled out a dagger and stabbed the ice. After that, the alpha returned to the boy's side and even used his own body to help keep him warm. One man and one wolf relied on each other and supported each other for a while in the snow and ice. But one day, they were targeted by a pack of hounds. The boy and Alpha rushed into the blizzard with him, taking advantage of the snow to block the hounds' view. The boy and Alpha escaped by hiding in a cave, but the next moment, an even more ferocious black panther suddenly appeared. Luckily, Alpha reacted in time and blocked the panther's attack. But Alpha is clearly no match for the panther. At the critical moment, the boy grabbed his bow and arrow, adjusted his breathing, and killed the panther with a single arrow. Once again, the boy was able to save the day, but Alpha was not so lucky. He was covered in blood and fell to the ground before he could take the steps. Although the boy knew that the next step would only be more difficult, he never thought of giving up on his companion. Because of this journey, the Alpha was not just a wolf, but a member of his clan, his brother. The boy carried the dying Alpha in his arms, walking hard against the cold wind. I don't know how long it took, but the boy finally saw the camp he knew so well. Looking at the boy, who fell to the ground trembling, even the boy's Alpha father couldn't believe that the boy had come back alive. It wasn't until he touched the boy's cold hand that his father realized it wasn't an illusion. In his last moments before losing consciousness, the boy pleaded with his father to save his companion. When the boy woke up again, the Alpha had survived, and the tribal shaman kept rubbing Alpha's stomach. Then he lifted a puppy from underneath Alpha's body. It turns out that Alpha had already become a mom, but even so, she still tried her best to protect the boy along the way. The boy crawled to Alpha with difficulty. At this moment, he was so grateful and heartbroken that he couldn't express it in words. Luckily, they would be with each other for a long time to come. As Alpha's offspring grew up, they became part of the Guardian tribe, until, years and years later, the wolf evolved into a whole new species, the husky. This is the movie Alpha by Albert Hughes. In ancient times, the harsh environment turned the earth into a battlefield. Humans were helpless in the face of the natural environment, but they still fought against heaven and earth. In order to survive, the protagonist has to fight against the primitive world, and thus grows from a young boy to a real man. He overcomes the most impossible difficulties and realizes the most impossible goals, because man will overcome God. An animal, too, uses his life to tell a story about loyalty and a story about trust.